Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the webinar of a deep dive into our environmental job posting analysis. So we're going to kick things off with some housekeeping. All participants will be muted. For technical issues, please use the chat function. For any questions, they can submit them through the chat function or the question function. And a recording of this webinar will be sent out within 24 hours to all attendees and registrations. Thanks. Now into our traditional land acknowledgement. Eco-Canada and myself would like to recognize today and every day the land we are on. Eco-Canada is committed to right reconciliation, starts with acknowledging and our honor and privilege to live and work within Treaty 7 territory. Eco-Canada acknowledges the traditional territories and the oral practices of these nations. So a little bit about Eco-Canada. Eco-Canada is a steward of the Canadian environmental workforce across industries. We champion the end-to-end career of an environmental professional. We not only train and certify professionals, but also help identify the address and address labor market gaps. Our efforts to promote and drive responsible, sustainable economic growth to ensure that the environmental care and best practices are a priority. So I just want to inform everyone about Eco Impact. This is our annual conference that's coming up February 8th to 9th, which will be hosted at the Westin downtown Calgary. It's a 2-day event with a lot of environmental professionals and a lot of great information there as well. And I'm going to hand this off to Jenny. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Chase. Just to welcome you all to our webinar today. My name is Geni Peters. I'm the Director of Research for Eco-Canada. Our objective today is to tell you a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of how we determine the number of environmental job postings across Canada and where you can find that information on our website. Today we're going to talk about what a job posting analysis is, some of the benefits of job posting analysis, some of the restrictions or difficulties that we find doing job posting analysis. We're going to talk about our approach to finding environmental jobs. And then we're going to talk about some of the findings from our 2022 job posting analysis. Talk a little bit about what is going to happen going forward in terms of future job posting analysis that we're going to be publishing over the next few months, and then talk about what's next in terms of our plans for the future. So before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about Eco-Canada's research overall. We aim to elevate Eco-Canada's position as a thought leader. And basically, we want to do that because we want to make sure that Eco-Canada is providing credible, reliable, up-to-date information to all of our stakeholders. And we want to be the expert that people can come to when they're looking for information about the labor market in the environmental sector. We have a number of different types of research that we do. We conduct studies that help us to determine what the labor market looks like. For example, we generate our job posting analysis to understand what the trends in hiring looks like over the next little while. We investigate the demographics of the environmental workforce. We focus on specific sectors of the environmental workforce and take a closer look at some of the careers and occupations that are involved in those. We have a compensation guide, which is available for individuals and organizations, looking at the compensation rates for environmental workers specifically. And then our flagship product is the employment forecast that we're going to be publishing in the next couple of months, which gives us an idea of what the employment of environmental workers trends might be going forward. So what sort of hiring demand is going to be expected over the next 7 years. We also do research into competencies or national occupational standards. And those sorts of research are helpful and useful to a lot of different stakeholders. The idea is that we want to come up with a really good and accurate description of what a person needs to be able to do in order to be considered competent in their job. So we evaluate a wide variety of different types of jobs. We've done about 36 in the blue economy or the oceans economy sector. We're now working on another 25 in the electric vehicle battery supply chain sector and another 10 that are looking at sustainability jobs. We're also looking at defining outcomes for post-secondary graduates so that environmental programs can make sure that their graduates are up to snuff when it comes to getting a job and being qualified for the work that they're going to be doing. And then we also do a number of different types of more custom research. We do market research into particular programs or products that could be offered for the environmental workforce development. We provide benchmarking data, and we do investigations into workforce planning and workforce development. So going back to the topic of today, which is our job posting analysis, or what we refer to as our JPA. Basically, a job posting analysis takes advantage of the fact that 75% of job vacancies in Canada are now advertised on the internet, which allows us a great opportunity to gather information about the types of jobs that are being offered and what sorts of skills are needed by the employers who are offering those jobs. We have two different dashboards that we publish on our website. I'll give you a snapshot of those in a little while. One of them looks at highlights of the different types of jobs, environmental jobs that are being offered in terms of the regions that they're being offered in, the types of occupations that are available, and the industries in which those jobs are taking place. And then also we look at job posting trends. So we take a look at what's happened to the number of environmental job postings over time. Our data currently goes back to the beginning of 2021. So we've got 2021 and 2022 data. So again, as I said, the fact that we've got all of these online job postings allows us to use some statistical data techniques to find out what's going on in the job market, rather than going out to employers and asking them in a survey. And one of the benefits of that, of course, is that the surveying of a wide swath of environmental companies across Canada can be very expensive and time-consuming. It's actually easier for us to do this job posting analysis and a little bit less expensive, which allows us to continually provide that information over time. Another benefit is that we can do this on a quarterly basis. So we can provide the most recent or most up-to-date data rather than doing it, say, annually or even every couple of years through infrequent LMI surveys. And then it's also possible for us to achieve more granular information, because we're not dealing with just a small sample of companies. We're looking at the entire population of job postings across the board, across Canada. One of the challenges or limitations of job posting analysis is that it doesn't give us a full picture of all jobs. Not all jobs are posted online. In particular, we find that trades jobs, for example, are often advertised or coordinated through union halls, and so are not posted online. We also see that a number of different types of jobs are internal to organizations, and so we are not able to capture those. We also find that jobs may be posted more frequently for occupations where there is a higher turnover of staff. So it may not be that there are more jobs being, well, it's not that there are more jobs in that occupation available for workers. It's just that those jobs are being filled more frequently in order to replace the staff that has turned over. And then lastly, there is a lot of work in the back end for this data. One of the things that we find is that the data itself, we gather the job title, the employer, the job description, the region, but then we have to go the next step and we have to map that data to the industry where that individual or that job is being offered, the region or the area where it's being offered, and the occupation where it's being offered. This data is not available to us right from the job posting itself. So we have to do some extra work in order to get that. Different organizations do that mapping process differently. We've been fortunate in that we have been able to continue to use the same platform, which is Talent Neuron, over the past couple of years. And so we've had a more reliable, systematic relationship or mapping of that data. But should we change platforms, that could alter the results that we find. So let's start with what is an environmental job, or what is environmental work? So the environmental workforce is very broad. It spans workers across industries and occupations, as long as they drive or support the goals of environmental protection, resource management, or sustainability. We look at the environmental workforce from two different perspectives. One group of environmental workers we consider, or we refer to as core environmental workers. These are workers whose jobs require them to have very specific environmental competencies in order to do their work. Examples of these types of workers include impact assessment professionals, environmental engineers, meteorologists and climatologists, people who have to have very specific understanding of ecology or environmental regulations or policy in order to be able to do their job. These people can work in any different industry across Canada. So we often find that there are quite a few environmental workers in natural resource industries like mining and oil and gas. We also have a number of them in the public administration sector. We have a number of environmental workers in construction and in the manufacturing sector. So these core workers can find work in a number of different industries across Canada, applying the same sort of environmental competencies. The objective of their work is to ensure that Canada is meeting or exceeding our environmental objectives. The other type of environmental worker that we consider is the environmental goods and services sector worker. These are direct workers for companies, of companies who are providing environmental goods or services to the economy. Could be solar panel manufacturers, it could be a clean tech company coming up with a new bioplastic, it could be a sustainable agriculture operation. These environmental goods and services operations need a wide variety of different types of workers, some of whom are not going to have environmental competencies. Business development specialists, administrative assistants, truck drivers, janitorial staff. All of these individuals are needed in order for the operation to work, but they may not have these competencies. Nonetheless, we would still consider those to be environmental workers. So given that definition, how do we find environmental job postings? Well, we start with a data set which is provided by an organization called Talent Neuron. It's a job scraping platform, which basically means that they've got spiders or bots or ways of finding ways of finding job postings on the internet, and then they collect those job postings into a database that we can access in order to do our analysis. Once we access that job posting data, and we're fortunate in that we can access the entire population of job postings in any given period across Canada, we filter those job postings to identify the ones that are specifically environmental jobs. And we do that using specific keywords and phrases that we're looking for either in the job title or the job description in order to figure out whether it's an environmental job. Once we identify a job posting as environmental, we flag it, and then we calculate the number of environmental job postings, and we compare that to the total number of job postings to calculate what we call the environmental job share, which is or what we refer to as the enviro share. So as a simple example, suppose that there are 1,000 job postings for civil engineers in one quarter in Ontario, for example, and 550 of them contain these relevant environmental keywords or phrases. Well, we would then identify that 55% of the civil engineers that are operating in Ontario would be considered, in that quarter, would be considered environmental workers. Now, this data is available in both English and French, and so we use those keywords and phrases in both languages to search for potential environmental workers or environmental screening. Once we gather that data, we then validate the results, eliminating outliers or suspicious findings. And sometimes we unfortunately find that some of the job postings that were flagged as environmental aren't actually environmental. So sometimes our terms capture what we call a false positive. We try to eliminate those false positives before we publish our data. So here's a sample of what our current job posting analysis dashboard looks like. And this dashboard is available on our website. You can go to eco.ca, check out the research section, and under job trends, you'll find this job posting analysis dashboard. The JPA dashboards include national data and provincial and territorial data on both a quarterly and an annual basis. We also provide data by occupation, by industry, and by environmental specialization. Lastly, in addition to the number of environmental job ads that are offered in any given period and region, we also identify what the enviro share is. So we can identify where we've got occupations that are largely or primarily environmental jobs, and where there are jobs that, well, there may be a few environmental workers in those occupations overall across Canada, but it's not largely environmental jobs. And as an example, we can see civil engineers in this case have a 74.3% enviro share, which means that based on our estimate and job postings, almost 75% of civil engineers are doing environmental work these days. In contrast, if we take a look at software engineers and designers, we see an enviro share of only 4.5%, which suggests that just under 5% of software engineers and designers are actively engaged in environmental work based on our job posting analysis. So that gives us some flavor as to where there is predominantly environmental work and where there is environmental work, but it's not a dominant aspect of that particular occupation. This slide shows sorry, let's go back. Yeah, thank you. This shows us our environmental job posting trends analysis. These dashboards are accompanied by a short text summary of some key insights which are gained from the job posting analysis. Overall, the job posting analysis trends suggest that although the environmental workforce, I'm sorry, let me back up. Although the Canadian workforce is growing slowly, the environmental workforce is growing faster. The hiring in the environmental workforce space is higher than it is overall across Canada. If we take a look at 2022 specifically, we see that there were 1.9 million online jobs advertised in Canada in 2022. And about 244,000 of those jobs were for environmental workers. So that gives us an Enviro share of about 12% across the country, across all jobs, all industries, all occupations. Since 2021, the number of environmental job ads increased by 4.1%, which was in contrast to the total number of jobs posted by employers, which went down by 23% overall. So as I said before, environmental job postings are growing faster than overall jobs. When we take a closer look at the data from 2021 to 2022 on a quarterly basis, we see a couple of things happening. One is that looking at the vertical axis on the left-hand side of the screen, that tells us what the number of environmental job ads was across that quarter. So we see some fluctuation in terms of the number of environmental job ads from 2021 to 2022. Likewise, we see some fluctuation in the Enviro share, which is represented by the curve, the brown curve on the line, and shown on the vertical axis on the right side of the graph. What's interesting is that in early 2021, in the first couple of quarters of 2021, we had quite a number of environmental jobs being offered. But at the same time, our environmental job share was relatively low in the 8 to 9% range. We have a drop in the total number of environmental jobs offered in the latter part of 2021. It begins to increase again in 2022. And as the job postings increase, this time it's a reflection of the number of environmental workers or the environmental job share. Environmental job postings peaked in Q3 of 2021, up 6% from the previous quarter across all of Canada. The total number of environmental job postings went up by 12.7% in 2022 overall. Let's take a look at environmental jobs by region of Canada. And in order to get the best information we can, we've in some cases, we've lumped provinces together into particular regions. For example, Saskatchewan and Manitoba are grouped together, the Atlantic provinces are grouped together, and the Northern Territories are grouped together. If we take a look at the job postings by year, we see that the number of job postings increased fastest in British Columbia. We saw a year-over-year increase of over 10,000 environmental job postings in British Columbia. That was followed by Alberta with about 6,700 job postings increase increase of 6,700 job postings from 2021 to 2022. And then Quebec follows that with about 4,400 additional job postings. Overall, Ontario had the highest number of environmental job postings, which is it's consistent with the overall job market in Ontario being the largest in Canada as well. If we take a look at other trends across the country, we see that there were 2 regions where we had decreases in the total number of job postings across the region. Between 2021 and 2022, the Northwest Territories saw a slight decrease, as did Prince Edward Island, saw a slight decrease in the number of job postings for environmental workers. When we consider the environmental job postings by industry, by far the professional, scientific, and technical services industry had the highest number of job postings, with about 77,000 job openings for environmental workers, with an Enviro share of about 14%, 13.9%. That's followed by educational services with about 22,500 job postings for environmental workers, provincial territorial public administration with 13,700 job postings for environmental workers, and then local, municipal, and regional public administration with about 8,300 job postings for environmental workers. If we take a look at the trend between 2021 and 2022, it was provincial and territorial public administration that saw an increase in environmental job postings in 2022. The other industries across Canada unfortunately saw a decrease in the total number of environmental job postings in 2022 relative to 2021. So I've mentioned civil engineers a couple of times in this discussion, and that's because civil engineers are one of our top environmental occupations in Canada. About 74% of civil engineer job postings were environmental job postings, and that was a 24% increase in the Enviro share from 2021, suggesting that more and more environmental work is being done by civil engineers across Canada. Other types of occupations that have high Enviro shares include geological and mineral technologists and technicians, with a 67.6% Enviro share. In that case, there were about 4,700 environmental job postings for geological and mineral technologists and technicians. For biologists and related scientists, we saw about 7,900 job openings with an Enviro share of about 56%. And then for public and environmental health and safety professionals, we saw another 4,700 job openings in 2022 with an Enviro share of about 50%. So in those occupations, we're seeing a lot of hiring taking place. There's a lot of demand for environmental workers in those occupations. One of the other ways that we classify environmental work is by the type of activity that the environmental worker is doing, or the sort of the field of specialization for that environmental worker. We've got 3 broad categories of environmental work: environmental protection, resource management, and environmental sustainability. If we take a look at each of those 3 large categories, we can actually drill down a little bit into what we refer to as our specializations or subsectors. For example, in environmental protection, we have people working in air quality, in water quality, in site assessment and reclamation, in waste management, and environmental health and safety. On the resource management side of things, we have people working in renewable energy, energy efficiency, natural resource management, which includes agriculture and forestry and mining, and fisheries and wildlife management as well. So this model allows us to classify job postings based on what sort of activity or what sort of area of work the individual is participating in. So let's take a look at those findings in the next slide. So if we take a look at the job postings for 2022, we see that there is a large number of jobs available in the sustainability field. Sustainability being a broad category that includes climate change, planning and mitigation. It includes the measurement and quantification of greenhouse gases, and basically the sustainability efforts of corporations and organizations across the board. That's followed by the natural resource management. So again, that's the mining and agriculture and forestry activities. And that's followed then by environmental health and safety activities. At the bottom, we have some research and development, some education and training, and some communications and public awareness activities as well, although those tend to be smaller, there tends to be smaller demand for workers in those particular specializations across Canada. So in order to take advantage of this job posting analysis, we do two basic pieces of research with it. One is the job posting dashboard that I've just introduced you guys to. And the great thing about that dashboard is it's interactive. So you can go in and you can take a look at a particular occupation, a particular region, a particular industry, a particular time period, and play around with that data to see what's happening in specific areas of environmental job, in the environmental job market. In addition to that, we also use those EnviroShares that I was talking about earlier to help us identify the total number of environmental workers across Canada, and then to forecast what the demand for those workers is going to look like in the future. Right now, we're in the process of using the 2022 and 2023 job posting analysis data to estimate what the size of the environmental workforce is across Canada in 2024, and then to forecast the hiring across Canada for the different occupations and different industries through 2030, so for a 7-year period. So we're in the process of developing those numbers for 2024. But let's take a look at a quick review of what our last job posting analysis showed, which is our 2021 labor demand outlook. In that particular report, we published that it looked like there were about 690,000 environmental workers across Canada. Again, that includes core environmental workers and workers in the environmental goods and services sector. We estimated that there were going to be about 74,400 new jobs for environmental workers created between 2020 and 2025. We also estimated that there were going to be 98,300 job openings for environmental workers due to people retiring from the workforce. So what that gave us is a total of 172,700 job openings for environmental workers between 2020 and 2025. That's about 25% of the total environmental workforce that we observed in 2020. Again, stay tuned for our upcoming release that should be coming out in March of 2024. In addition to that, we've got a number of other types of job information and environmental workforce information that's going to be published over the next little while. We have some updates to our job posting analysis to include 2023 data. That's coming over the next couple of months. In February, we're going to be publishing a demographic profile of the environmental workforce. And we're also going to be providing a report that captures the perceptions and awareness of what environmental work is and the interest level that people have in doing environmental work in our career awareness and perception report. Again, we're going to have labor market outlooks coming out. We're going to have a national outlook coming out in March, as well as one for Quebec specifically, one for Ontario specifically, one for Manitoba specifically, and one for Atlantic Canada. And then moving further into the year, we're going to have a new compensation guide. Our 2023-2024 compensation guide for environmental workers is coming out in May. And then we're going to have a kind of another flagship study, which is our Energy Efficiency Employment in Canada report, which is going to be published in August of 2024. So keep an eye on our research page, and we'll send out information in our newsletter to give you an update on when things are coming out. But we've got a lot of great information coming out over the next little while, and we hope you take advantage of all of the insights and information that we provide. So at this point, I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you found that this was a useful presentation. I'm going to pass it over to Chase to see if there are any questions that you have for me.
Yeah, so we're just opening up the questions now. If anyone would like to submit any questions into the question slot there, that'd be awesome. We did have one question earlier asking if they would get the slide deck after the event, and I said yes, there'll be recording sent out 24 hours after this one ends today.
Great, good. Of course, the other information that we should pass along is that you're always able and willing to, or interested, if you're interested in our information, you can always reach out to us directly at the research team through research@eco.ca, or if you're interested in any of the other aspects of Eco Canada's work, you can always reach out to us at info@eco.ca. And those are, that's for things like our certification, our environmental professional certification, our accreditation of post-secondary educational institutions. We've got training programs, webinars like this one, and we've also got wage funding programs where individuals who are just starting out their career can get a leg up in the labor market by having their salary subsidized to a little bit of an extent for their new employer.
So Lillian asked a question about the training. Where can I get more information for education services? What specific roles are trending for the environmental related work in previous provinces? And do we have any networking events?
Okay, all right. So we do have some networking events coming. We've got some, Chase, what is it called? It's called the
Eco Tour. So we are doing that right across Canada. We did do half of it just before Christmas, and we're now doing the second leg of the tour. So you can check on our socials and see if there's any near you. And then as well, if you follow our socials, we do post a lot of events we'll be having around Canada all year round, as well as we're having the Blue Economy Conference in Atlantic Canada coming up in March.
There are a lot of good opportunities for networking, and again, if you want more information, just reach out to us at info@eco.ca and we'll send you all of the details.
Is there any more questions, anybody? Rena's asking, for educational services, what specific roles are trending for environmental related work?
That's a good question. So when we take a look at job postings, there are a lot of jobs open, a lot of openings for university professors and lecturers. We're looking for people who can help train the next round of environmental workers or the next round of environmental graduates so that they're prepared for the workforce. We also have some in the field of secondary education, although it's more dispersed, so it's less focused. So it's more in the field of people teaching sciences, for example, are going to have some environmental competencies in order to be able to convey some of the scientific understanding of environmental activities in their science classes. So those are the two primary areas in educational services where we're seeing demand for workers.
And then Lillian's asking again, is there any positions related to project management?
In terms of the broad occupational distribution, yes, there are quite a few project managers that are required for environmental work, although they're not necessarily required in the educational services sector. You would probably find the highest demand for project managers in the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, which includes environmental consulting companies, and engineering firms, architecture firms, law firms, other types of service providers in the technology service providers as well. So that's where you're going to find mainly the jobs for project managers in environmental work.
Awesome. Helen says, hi, Jenny, please, what current trends do you see in the demand for professionals specializing in sustainable building within the Canadian job market?
Okay, that's good. So the answer to that question is broad. One is there is growth in sustainable building across Canada, and there are a lot of employers out there looking for workers who can help them complete sustainable building projects. Most of that demand, most of the hiring challenges that these employers are having are related to the trades workers on those jobs. The specialists in the engineering side of things, the design side of things, tend to be generally available, at least in bigger population centers, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, etc. But it really is the trades workers, the people on the job, who need the workforce needs to sort of kind of upskill in order to be able to create these high performance buildings. Building above code is basically the phrase that's being used by the employers in that field. There is also demand for facilities managers, building managers, superintendents. These new buildings, these especially large commercial buildings and industrial buildings, when they are environmentally or energy efficient, they are generally pretty high tech. And so there's a need for these building managers to be, I guess, upskilled as well in order to be able to understand all of the intricacies of these new high-tech buildings.
Amazing, thanks, Jenny. And one last question here from Joanna. Do you have any information about the marketplace for residents versus immigrants?
That's a good question. Based on our analysis of the job postings alone, there is generally no distinction between immigrants or native-born Canadians when it comes to the availability of jobs. The jobs are available to anybody who's got the qualifications. I think where the challenge comes in is that in some cases, new immigrants don't have Canadian work experience. They're not familiar with the Canadian work culture, and that is sometimes a barrier for employers who are looking for workers to kind of jump in and do the job right away. And another area where there are complications, of course, is in credential recognition. New immigrants usually come with credentials from their home countries or from other international countries. Sometimes it can take a while for those credentials to be recognized within Canada. And so they have a challenge getting that recognition of the work that they've done in the past and the knowledge that they have. So it's not that the job market isn't open to all, it's that in some cases employers are when they're deciding on the best candidate for the job, they may be looking for somebody who's got more Canadian work experience and Canadian credentials, just simply because they're more likely to be able to get to work right away without having to upskill a little bit.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Jenny. Well, I think that concludes all of our questions. So thank you very much, and please keep an eye on our socials for any upcoming webinars or events. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.